welcome back to hour number 3 of the show. Joining us in studio, I want to welcome Marco Rubio. Good morning, Senator.
Good to be with you.
Good to have you here. Thanks so much for coming on in. It's good to see you.
It's good to be in a studio in person, not on the phone, you know.
Right?
Yeah.
Last time we actually had you on the show, we had all kinds of technical problems, and oh my God, what a mess. So it's great to actually have you here in studio. A lot going on, and man, I almost don't even know where to start because there's so much crazy in this world that we're living in, and I guess we could start a little bit about life under Biden and where we are in this world. I mean, what are some of your thoughts on the administration and what's going on in this country?
Well, gross incompetence. And I think it's a gross incompetence that's driven by an ideology. I mean, these are ideologues, or at least trapped by ideology. So we have record gas prices because the only way to deal with that is supply, produce more oil. But their radical ideology won't let them do that. So we're not producing more oil, but we're begging other countries for more oil.
Makes no sense.
Right. We have a crime wave in America because that's what happens when your ideology tells you can't arrest people, and if you do, you got to let them out of jail, and you waive bail. And we have by the end of the Biden's first 2 years, over 4 million people will have entered our country illegally. Why? Because we're telling people, hey, come. And by the way, if you come, we're going to let you stay, and you may even get benefits American citizens don't get. So you go down the line, you pour $1.9 trillion into the economy, government spending in March of 2021, at a time when there's also supply shortages, you're going to have inflation. And now the way they deal with inflation is to have the Fed raise interest rates. So now we're going to have a recession. And so it's all driven by incompetence, but an incompetence that is the natural byproduct of these guys treating America like some social experiment. We're going to try all these crazy things that professors have been talking about for 40 years. We're going to actually try them in the real world. And then when they meet disaster, they want to change the subject or pretend it's not happening. It's a terrible situation that I hope we can reverse here soon.
Yeah, I really hope we can. And, to me, it's amazing because I try to find on a daily basis that shining star of the Biden administration because, every administration's got that one person that is like the smartest person in the room. I can't find it. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, I think the Director Burns that's running the CIA hasn't screwed that up. I mean, I think he's probably you don't hear a lot about him on the news. And so I think that's a good thing and an important thing for the country. But part of the problem we have is all these really important institutions are losing their primary purpose for existing. Like we have a military to win wars, but you wouldn't know that by looking at their Twitter feed where last month they kept putting up, rainbow flag stuff and videos on the Navy about, what's the right pronouns to use. So, for the first time ever, I've had families say that they don't want their, kids applying for West Point in our nomination process because they consider those to be woke academies. So it's a big problem. It's what happens. That's what's happened in our schools aren't about learning and they're about indoctrination. The federal government's basically become the enforcer of an ideology, of a woke ideology, and has put that above its primary purpose, which is to pursue the common good. So I think part of the challenge we have in all of these places that you're talking about is they've really appointed, commissars to oversee the enforcement of the ideology instead of forwarding or furthering the actual purpose for these institutions, for these agencies to even exist.
Yeah. What do you think about all this wokeness that we're seeing, especially with corporations? I mean, we saw what, Ron DeSantis did here in Florida to Disney, and, that kind of smacked him a little bit. I don't even think they woke up to it.
Yeah, look, I think these corporations, some of them are being blackmailed by employees that are threatening, to go crazy and, not go to work, whatever it is. Others, frankly, are run by people that share in these views. It's a free country. They can believe whatever they want. What they can't do, I think there's two things happening. One, my biggest problem with the new ruling class in America is they don't just want to have their opinion because it's a free country. You want to believe crazy stuff, believe crazy stuff. What you can't do is use your power, whether it's in government or in private sector, to ram it down everyone else's throat. And there's a secondary effect to this, which is really damaging, and that is there's no escape from it. We can't escape politics anymore. You can't watch a sporting event. You can't watch a movie. You can't listen to music. You can't go anywhere without being pounded over the head with politics. So where are people who have differences of opinion on politics supposed to find common ground? How are you supposed to share something in common with people so we can share a country? Maybe we disagree on the tax rate, but you know what? We root for the same team or we watch the same TV program. We can't do that anymore. Even entertainment, even sports is now forcing you to pick a political side, and it's adding to this dimension of division in our country in a very destructive way.
Yeah, I don't think, and I'm a student of history. I don't think that there's ever been a time that this country has been as divided as it is.
Well, I think the Civil War is probably pretty divisive, right? Yeah, but
that might even be a draw. I mean, I'm curious on that one.
Well, here's the difference, right? We understand that America is an incredibly powerful country, but what makes us special has always been fragile. Okay? We are the world's only successful multi-ethnic, multiracial democratic republic. The only people who have ever taken people from all over the world of all different kinds of backgrounds and from it made one people and one nation. But what holds us together is fragile. The country's strong, but the glue that holds us together is fragile. It's voluntary associations at the local level. We members of the same PTA, the same members of this, members of that. And now what's happening is for the first time and that fragility, that very fragile thing that holds us together, we've had generation after generation has been committed to keeping them. They made changes because they lived in a new era. There had to be some changes, obviously, and some of them are very positive changes that we had to make throughout our history. But never have we had what we have now, which is a governing class that basically says our history is terrible, we're smarter and morally superior to the people in previous generations, and it's time to just throw the whole thing out and start over and rebuild this thing in a new image. And that's what we have. And that's what's causing the division. You know what's causing division? There are things that 5 years ago were widely accepted,
right?
Not even controversial. Today, these things are considered immoral, unjust, and you're not allowed to say them publicly because if you do, you could be fired, you can be investigated, you can be put out of business, you can be canceled. It's insane. Yeah. And so there's going to be people aren't just going to take this. They're going to fight back.
Yeah, it's going to be getting to a breaking point, and I'm just wondering how much longer it's going to be, because one of the things that you see is with the Democrats. I mean, you see it's my way or no way. We obviously right now we're watching the January 6th fiasco going on, and nobody's saying anything about what Maxine Waters said not too long ago on the steps of the Supreme Court. Nobody's saying anything about Chuck Schumer when he said, we're going to come get you, Gorsuch. We're going to come get you. Nobody's saying anything about this type of stuff. Yeah. And there's like this double standard, and it just seems like what's going on and why
to be fair, people are saying, I'm saying it, but it only gets covered or picked up. I think your broader point is the right one, is that you don't have these editorials about it. You don't have these leading, dignitaries in the commentary world talking about it. There is a double standard. I'm against political violence. Yeah. I'm against political violence in our democracy. I don't think people on my side should be doing it. I don't think people on their side should be doing it. The problem with those guys is they only criticize it when they think they can link it to the other side. When it's their people that are bombing, a pro-life center, when it's their people that are putting graffiti up on a Catholic church, when it's their people that are committing these acts of violence or threatened violence, then they don't seem nearly as fired up about it. And look, at the end of the day, I said it when they started it. When are we going to have the hearings on the hundreds of riots, the $2 billion in damage, and the 1,500 injured police officers from the riots of the summer of 2020, when there were people out there justifying this stuff, or
they were just peaceful. The building behind me on fire, it's just because they were cold. It's just
and again, unreal. It's that double standard that people see. But what it's done is it's also undermined the credibility of the media in this country, which I don't think is a good thing at the end of the day, right?
It really is. There was a survey that just came out yesterday, and it's down to about 11% that actually trust the mainstream media at this point.
Yeah, at this point, I don't think people trust. That's the other thing that's happened. We've become a nation deeply distrustful because of this unfairness. Like when you turn on a network or say a station, you're not going to get just the straight facts so you can make a decision. You're going to get a narrative. Mm-hmm. Media has become about narratives. I think clearly there's an ideological lean in the mainstream media. There's no doubt about it. But I think adding to that is the fact that what draws ratings and clicks is outrage. Outrage leaning in one direction or leaning in another. And so that's part of the challenge we have as well in the country, is that we literally have become a people that are getting their news from very different places and operating off a different set of facts. Unfortunately, it seems like the people on my side of it are always getting the short end of the stick.
Right, yeah. So we're watching now with Biden, just about everything he touches, it just, it's not turning to gold, but that's probably the politest way of saying it. And we saw what happened in Afghanistan. We saw what's happening, across the country here, everything that he tries to put his fingers on. Is there any question as to whether or not he's a puppet of China? When we look at all the stuff that he's doing with China, all the things going on with Hunter Biden, and nobody wants to touch it. It just seems like he's giving everything to them and not focusing on us.
Well, I can't obviously prove. I unlike Democrats, I don't go on the air and just make accusations without proof that I can point to. What I can point to is this. Number one is I think he's left us so vulnerable as a country that in essence we are. I have a piece coming out in the next couple of days that talks about You know that we are shutting down refineries. You know why we're shutting down refineries in America? Because when you have a president and a party in power that's telling people fossil fuel industry is evil, we're going to put you out of business in 10 years. Well, who's going to invest in a new refinery, right? So you know who has the most surplus refining capacity on the planet? China. So it is just a matter of time before he has to go to China and ask them to refine more crude oil so they can enter the marketplace. At which point China's going to say, fine, we'll do it. You got to get rid of the tariffs. You got to get rid of the Trump era restrictions on X, Y, and Z. So I think that makes us a puppet eventually of them. The same is true with, on issue after issue regarding the military. Look, I support the people of Ukraine. We can't keep writing a $4 billion check every day. What I don't understand is they keep announcing this massive troop buildup of U.S. soldiers and sailors and ships and airplanes going to Europe. The real issue here is not in Europe, it's in Asia. The Russians are not going to be invading anybody else anytime soon. They got their hands full with Ukraine as it is.
They can't handle that.
And they can't handle that. Where is those ships and those soldiers and those airmen, if they need to be anywhere abroad, it should be in the Asia-Pacific region. But we can't because we've tied our hands in this European thing that he's gotten into. So it's just nonsense after nonsense. I think some of it's driven by just incompetence, but a lot of it is driven, again, by ideology. It's an ideologically driven trap that they are in. The answer to every one of our problems is something that will put Biden at war with his own party, a civil war within the left, and he can't do it. And that's why he won't. And that's why these things aren't going to get solved.
Is there anything that we can do, and probably not between now and when we, take the House and hopefully the Senate as well, but in the meantime, is there anything that we can do, or can we do anything once we do take everything aside from impeaching him? Yeah,
one of the first things we can do is at least stop bad things from happening. Some of the nominees that have gotten on the bench and that have gotten on the cabinet and agencies under this administration, are just well beyond even the left. They're far off the spectrum. It's not just left, it's far left. We've had people nominated that are open Marxists. Some of them have had to remove or withdraw their nomination because of it, because they were too much even for some of them. But I would say we can stop bad things from happening. But I think the most important thing, and I said this earlier today, I said it earlier this week to a group I spoke to, is I think this is a time that reminds us of why federalism, as we understand it, is really perfect for our country, right? The notion that we should have more, to the extent government's going to have power over something, it should be in the hands of local governments, school boards, states, because it's closer to the people, it's more responsive, and it allows people to sort of decide, okay, this is what I want the laws to be like within the confines of our constitutional order, and I like the law, and it allows Alabama to be Alabama and Florida to be Florida, and that might be different than what California or Illinois decide. And then, in a free country, people can move if they don't like the taxes, the policies, the criminality, whatever, and we're already seeing some of that. So I do think that those of us in federal office should really double down on the belief that we should be returning more government decision-making, if it's in the hands of government at all, decision-making to the hands of local and state officials, because we do great harm when we inject a one-size-fits-all solution on a lot of these problems.
Yeah, we've seen nothing but bad every time we see that. And I want to get your thoughts on this. Gavin Newsom over the weekend had the ad that pretty much attacked, Ron DeSantis and the Republicans here in Florida. And it aired exclusively here in Florida. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I haven't seen the ad.
It's bad.
Well, Gavin Newsom wants to be in it worked for him, right? Yeah. He wants to be in the conversation. He looks at Biden. He says Biden's not going to be able to run again. Maybe it should be him. That's what he's thinking. How do I get myself in the conversation? Let me take on Ron DeSantis, which is the highest profile Republican nationally now, and I'll run ads in his state. So he's the same guy that I think about a month ago joined Truth Social, which is the Trump-started social media thing. Again, to sort of trigger that. He wants to be seen as kind of like I imagine, a DeSantis version on the Democratic side and get himself in the mix and in the conversation. And he feels emboldened by having survived that recall. I think ultimately his biggest albatross, no matter what he runs for nationally, is, do you really want to live like California, a state where people are fleeing? A beautiful city like San Francisco, these guys have ruined it. It's a city where people are, going to the bathroom out in the street, where you have people shooting needles of heroin in their arm right outside the door of a $4 million home. These have become hellhole cities, and because of left-wing politicians, and that's the state, and these are the things he supports. Right,
and we're talking with Senator Marco Rubio, by the way, and since you didn't see the ad, just to give you an idea about the ad, and for those who didn't see it as well, it was nothing but talking about all of the things that the Republicans have done to destroy your rights and everything else and freedom and everything that Ron DeSantis did and did right. He kind of came at it and said it was all wrong, and trying to claim that California is the state of freedom and we love freedom there, and trying to lure people, which I saw the ad, and I mean, you got to go check it out.
Well, I think
it's a good giggle.
Yeah, well, but listen, that ad is probably going to be very impressive to a lot of people on the left. That's who he's trying to impress by doing it. He's not aiming it at people like me. But I will tell you that what I always tell people when they say, or when they try to say that, is then why do people keep moving here? It's just like America. If America's such a terrible place, then why do people keep trying to come here? And it's the same like Florida. Florida continues to grow with people all over the country. Why would people come to a place that is as bad as these guys claim it is? It doesn't make any sense. They know that. This is all, he's just trying to get his name in the mix.
It's backfiring a little bit on him, though, because a lot of his donors are going, why did you just spend all of our money in Florida?
Yeah, look, he's just trying to get his name in the mix, and that's probably, now he's being mentioned as a guy and being speculated about. It's a really ironic, sort of unprecedented situation. You have a sitting president eligible to run for re-election, and nobody, not even people in his own party, think he should, but they can't say that yet. But I think that's going to get more pronounced.
Right, yeah. So, on that topic, I'm going to throw you in a hot seat. Rubio again? For president?
Oh, gosh. Look, I've run before, right? So for me to tell you I'm never interested is silly. By the same token, I have my own re-election. I need to win that. I have things I want to do in the Senate. And I think I've learned probably a lot in the last 6 to 8 years that you just don't know what the world, what your life, what the circumstances, what the political environment's going to look like in 2, 4, 6 years nowadays, in 2, 3, or 4 months.
Right.
So I think decisions like that have to, I don't view it as, I want to be that position. I view it as, am I in a position in my life, my career, and is the country in a place where someone like me has something to contribute in that unique post? That's a decision I made in 2016 because I felt very strongly at that time that I did. I don't know if that's going to be the case in 2024. What I do know is that there are things I want to finish doing in the U.S. Senate, and that's why I decided to run for re-election. All
right. Well, one thing that I know that you are working on, and that is working with a lot of the vets who have been affected negatively by the toxic burn pits.
Yep.
And we've heard about a lot of those, over in the Middle East where we've been forever, it seems. Tell us a little bit about that, what you're working with and what's going on.
Well, what happened is simple. I mean, you were overseas and you served in one of these places, you're breathing this stuff in. Then you come back and a few years later, you have a brain cancer, some rare disease that is out of proportion for people of your generation or your age. The VA will say, well, can you prove that it's related to your service? Well, that's nearly impossible to prove that some brain tumor is directly related to some burn pit from 10 years ago. This created a presumption because not for any condition, but for these specific conditions where you have people suffering way out of proportion from what the statistics say they should be for someone of that age. And what, in many cases, sadly, these are end-of-life conditions, and others are some things that are treatable. It's not open-ended. And so we started working on that 2 years ago. We were getting a lot of calls about it. People that were suddenly, had brain cancer, and it didn't make a lot of sense that you had these pockets of people that served in those war zones that were breathing that in, that had it. And we were able to get that bill passed. It just passed a couple weeks ago. So what it means now is that veterans who served in these combat zones and had to serve there, not just spent the night there at a hotel and sent an email, actually had to serve there, these veterans will now have a presumption that their condition, as defined by the statute, by the new law, was caused by that burn pit, and they'll be able to get treatment and help from the VA. It's the third major piece of legislation regarding the VA that I've passed in my 11 years there. The first and the second VA accountability bills were my bills, the second one being signed, one of the first bills signed by President Trump. And now all we need is a VA secretary that will actually enforce it and fire people that aren't doing a good job. So I'm a big, strong believer in the VA. I think, it's an important system. It's a promise we make our men and women when they serve. And we're going to continue to look for ways to improve it.
So, probably have one or two quick little things on this. Locally here, and I know that you'd made a statement about this last week. The news came out about it with the Eastern Shipbuilding with the Coast Guard boats. The second round, it got cut from us and it was sent to Mobile and a foreign-owned company. What's the latest on that?
Well, we got to dig into that more. I was surprised. I think everyone was because it costs us money. It's more expensive. That company. Look, I know there's some parochial people say, it's parochial, it's Florida. Actually, just put that aside for a moment. That company that got it in Mobile has no experience building these types of ships. They were, number one, they've actually had some investigations conducted against them in the past for some of the contracts they had with the Navy. The third is, I think it's really unfair and I think unwise is it's going to cost more money. They've got to rebuild. They've never made one of these. So we initially had all those ships here, and then after Michael hit, this is like a double hit, right? They took them down to 4, and then even after Eastern has shown we're going to be able to do this, they didn't give them back half of the remaining. They just took them all and gave them to somebody else. I think it's very short-sighted. We're going to dig into what was behind it. Is it politics? Is it something else going on here? But clearly, I think that there is something more than just dollars and cents involved, because from a pure standpoint of where is the place that we think can deliver these ships the fastest and at a better price. I could understand having a second half of the contract or some portion of the remaining contract. What I can't understand is giving them the next 11 ships like they did. I mean, it just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's crazy, and hopefully they can figure that out and turn it around. And of course, you are running for your reelection. There's not a defined opponent for you just quite yet, but I think we all kind of realize it's probably going to be Val Demings.
Yeah, she's the one Schumer wants. Yeah. She's voted with Pelosi 100% of the time, and that's why they picked her to run, right? They want someone that'll be a rubber stamp. And look, she's raising a lot of money. Mm-hmm. These guys on the left, they have this, if you look at her campaign donations, a bunch of small donors from California, from all over the country, you know, they give money to these liberal candidates and causes. But she has a radical record. I mean, doesn't she? I mean, she believes... I mean, she's voted against deporting, criminal aliens. She thinks illegal aliens should vote in elections. I mean, she's been for every radical. She's a former police officer who was talking about defunding the police being a thoughtful idea. Right. That's why the Sheriff's Association, the police chiefs, almost every sheriff in Florida, 55, 56 of the sheriffs of 66 in the state have endorsed me. Every major law enforcement organization's endorsed me. Because this is someone who should know better from her time in law enforcement. And actually, it's worse when someone like that turns her back. She wanted to be picked as the VP for Joe Biden. Yeah. So during the midst of all this, she sort of went in that direction and now is trying to make up for it. But bottom line is this. They want her there because she'll vote the whatever way Schumer tells her to vote. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. We can't let that happen. There's no way Florida, a state that's doing so many things right, can be represented by someone who's going to be a Schumer puppet. If you want Schumer to be your U.S. Senator, you should move to New York, right? Because but apparently they're all moving here. So
what does that say?
But that tells you a lot.
It does. Senator Marco Rubio, I want to thank you so much for coming on in and joining us and talking. Open invitation anytime you want to come on the show.
Absolutely.
You just have Elizabeth holler at me and
we'll make it happen.
Get you on.
It's great to be with you in person. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.